I happened to live in the deep South, Georgia, in the summer of 2015 when the terrible killings happened and flags came down, and I was all for that. It was a very interesting time. I made good friends that I still have today. I'm also a longtime Faulkner fan, and I'm also from the North. In his life or in his work. And I apologize for the clickbait in a way. I want to know now that Brian and I are friends. Having said that, nothing is prepared, and I'm not taking the north side to his south side. I'm not trying to play devil's advocate. I'm going to help Brian's argument out. I have some in my rabbit hole the past few days. I found some articles, and Brian could have cited those. It seems to me it comes down to things that Faulkner said when he was young about, if the Union declared war on Mississippi, he would fight with Mississippi against the North. Fine, as a young man, Faulkner was 5'6", maybe 5'4". He couldn't get into the Army. He had to lie, and he finally got in. He was a very patriotic man. Brian said a lot of things in a short span of time. So I'd like to pinpoint in the text, specifically Light and August, but I'll use all three. And I found myself getting Sound and the Fury out too. Characters like Lester and DC, the slave matriarch. She runs that whole family, the Compsons, And then if we get into Sartoris, he, slave owner, that, okay. See? Okay. See? When I find myself shouting or talking too loud, I have to step back. I have a voice that carries. When I get excited, it seems like I'm like in attack mode, and I'm not. I'm just excited. Yeah. So Taurus and all that. These novels take place with that, like Light and August. It's 1930s Prohibition, Deep South. But in the novel, it spans the time going back to the 17th century. In that world, like Ulysses, takes place in Dublin, that world. Now, these are fictional worlds. You can say, I can go to Dublin. Yes, you can. And I can go to Oxford, Mississippi, where Jefferson City and Yaknapatawpha County is. And you say you don't know where Oxford is? Or some people might say that off the top of your head. It's in the news. It's where that girl got murdered at Ole Miss a few days ago. What else? You say, Brian, that Faulkner's work, his writing, his novels, and short stories are less racist than the man. And I'm taken aback by that statement. Is it the times they were in? I mean, and I could cite, it's easy to do, Google articles claiming that Faulkner is not racist, and then I can put up my spiel and make it. I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to answer questions, and honestly, is James Baldwin a racist? Yes, certainly is. And if Beale Street could talk, I don't have that. Again, we're gonna cut right in here and cut this in the bud right now. I don't want to make this argument. Really, I haven't read this. I'm not saying, I like to give people homework on my channel and in my life. Yes. Hold up another country. Beale Street can talk. Thomas Jefferson, was he a racist? He owned slaves. He fathered children with... Yes, he was, yes. Brian says, any kind of relationship in slavery between a slave owner, master, and slave is rape. Yes. Yes, it is. So, we're in agreement on that, but when you take, you take a man out of his times and put him into our times, it's not fair. It's like splitting hairs. Why do it? Why do it? Why do it? See, this would be easier for me if I knew that Brian did not love Faulkner's work. And, is it splitting hairs? I'm not sure. Where is it? 510, I think. It's a more subtle form of racism. You say, Brian, it's patronizing racism. Yeah, I suppose it is. But Faulkner was patronizing. James Joyce was patronizing. Don't call him Jim. His wife and maybe Frank Budgeon. Okay, the question Brian brings up about Henry Sutphin killing Charles Bond, because Bond Octoroon. Henry did not know that. Henry didn't know two things. One, that Charles Bond was his half brother, and he also didn't know that Charles Bond was half black, was mixed. Okay? But he found out when they met at the University of Mississippi. All right? And Charles became engaged to Judith. Charles was a private, for Mississippi, okay? And that's when Henry killed him. So the question is, and there's Judith, all these arrows, right? The question really is, or I don't know if it's a question, but it's a matter of fictional fact. Henry would rather not know that. Henry would have been okay if it was just a little incest going on. But any kind of black blood, no, we can't have that, right? So, and that's a minor part. I'd rather hear, I think Brian might suffer from this a little bit. And I think a lot of Southern gentlemen do. That sounded good. It's the end of the novel, Brian. I don't even have it marked up with all... I have a lexicon for this novel. I have read it I don't know how many times, but I don't have to know or highlight the end to know what that says. I don't hate it. I don't hate it. It's his college friend after flipping back in time. This novel is the epitome of tell, don't show, by the way. So that's how it ends. You want to know what I think? Shreve asked Quentin. No, Quentin said, I don't, Then I'll tell you. I think that in time, the Jim Bombs are going to conquer the Western Hemisphere. The last. Why do you hate the South? I don't hate it, Quentin said, quickly, at once, immediately. I don't hate it, he said. I don't hate it, he thought, panting in the cold air. New England dark. I don't hate it. I don't hate it. My VR to Brian. It starts with Roll Tide. No, that's for another one, believe it or not. Alabama Cat starts there. I already commented about that. And talk about that. But I want to get this part about Custer. Now you might be thinking, I just want to get it, and I'll talk.
Bullet hole in his head a gash in his thigh, an arrow piercing his penis. Supposed to be marching toward a rendezvous with Generals Terry and John Gibbon. He had arrived too soon. Failed to wait for other troops.
Okay, well,
confronted alone and
that's from Ron Chernow's award-winning book on Grant. He also did Hamilton. He was the same age as Bill Faulkner when he was young, and Faulkner made that comment about how he'd fight for, Mississippi and all that. These guys were crazy. I mean, Custer was brutal. I never knew he was that bad. I mean, I'm comparing like apples to oranges, and you might be right. And I'm comparing Custer. That's what Battle of Little Bighorn was. What, 1875, 76. Faulkner was born way after that. But Custer was at Antietam and Gettysburg, and he was there for Lee's surrender. I mean, he was, yeah. So keep coming back to that. The books are less racist than the man. 1220 is when you mention about, he has a more subtle form of racism, patronizing form. I kind of, I see where you're going. I do, and I'm open-minded. I like to think I am. This is a notebook. Let's go back to this crazy thing. The arrows point here, and you go there, and okay, I don't know if I should talk about Moultrie, Georgia, my experience there or not. My time there was, I'm just coming new to the Emmett Till story and the movie. It happened back in the 50s, mid-50s, but it's in today's headlines. I'm going to link to an NPR piece from last year. And my thinking is that, Faulkner at the very least kept the story alive in 1955 with the, I don't know why I'm leaving in, with the magazine article in Harper's, and so did James Baldwin. Wrote articles and spoke out about it. And Faulkner's language and phrasing and that is, I'm new to this, so I might be arguing Brian's point for him. I don't know. The Emmett Till story is a horrific story. It's my short rabbit hole research of it. It really it made me cry. It did. It's horrific. Now here, like 447, you say Christmas is mixed race. That's undetermined. No one knows. He doesn't even know. He does not know. And that scene with the what the doctor is messing around with when Christmas is like 5 years old. I mean, you mentioned things, and Joanna Burden. Now, and it's funny, Brian, you say like Joanna Burden is undetermined, where it's obvious Joe Christmas killed her. He almost cut her head off. I think you said at 447. They had a strange or sexual relationship story. Yeah, you can say that. She, you didn't mention how crazy Joanne is. Brought up, she's a Yankee. Her father was a Yankee preacher, and I mean, it's 1930 now. It's not slavery time. And the only stays in the present throughout Light in August is Lena Grove. More later. Yeah, you say he's a mixed race, and that's undetermined. He chooses to be black, though, which is more intriguing point to me. Joanna Burden is, abuses him terribly. She lays hands on Joe Christmas first. There's a lot of bad white men in late August. There's some good ones too, but for example, Lucas Birch, Joe Brown, he's a real, surprised he, how about Percy Grimm? I mean, people who read the story might understand, relate with old Percy. What I put, and half of the other white corn poles who hound this novel. Brian's gonna love that. Psychopath, Joe Christmas, yeah, but I mean, I can relate to everything he does. I end up feeling for him terribly. I'm gonna argue that Joanna Burden brings about her own demise, much like Joe Christmas brings about his own demise. 4.52 heritage. I'm talking about his heritage. He does. I remember the scene where Joe's, I think he's drunk or he's overtired. He goes back to the black neighborhood, and they don't, include him either. What did Faulkner think about mixed race? Yeah, 6:30. Was he for or against it? Okay, and I think in Epsilon, he's just an observer. Like, I think there's a note in here. Suppin's great design was not what he wanted to do, but what he just had to do. Had to do it whether he wanted to or not. Because if he did not do it, he knew that he would never live with himself for the rest of his life. In the same way, Faulkner himself writes not what he wants to, but what he just has to, whether he wants to or not. I was just reading about Go Down Moses. We're going to talk about Go Down Moses. And see, it's a 12, in which you're citing an article in which Faulkner said later he was misquoted, about the Mississippi thing. Yeah, he was a kid, 20-some years old, with a big tradition of a macho man, Civil War, I'm going to die on the battlefield. Yeah, I mean, I would have killed my father too. You guys just wait. Everyone following us along, and hashtag Faulkner. Die on the battlefield, just like my grandfather. And it's like, did Thomas Jefferson own slaves? Yes. Did Faulkner? No, but his grandfather did. So now we can't start going there to places like that. My grandfather did this and that too. And, my grandfather is not me.
Temperatures, of course, this evening and after the next few days, some great conditions.
Yes, I'm still at it. I just listened to, 15 minutes of a Joe Rogan podcast with Dr. Cornel West I'll watch it later tonight. And they were talking about Richard Pryor. And I think it's relative because Brian does bring up race relations in the South and in general. He says, are they better in the South than elsewhere in the country? Again, so I think I'm in a unique position, and Brian's in a unique position as well. Yeah, East Texas. Is East Texas Deep South? Yeah, it's by New Orleans, yeah. Kind of, sort of. I'm joking. Spent that year and a half, 16 months in Moultrie living with 3 black men, and it was co-ed. And one gentleman I lived with prior to, too, and did not get along with them. And then us 3 didn't get along with him either. You know why? Other than he was a dick. And I ended up feeling very sorry for the guy. because of his, he was dark skinned. Yeah, black people have racism within themselves. This appears in Faulkner and Light in August. There's a difference between Maludo and Octarine. And there's big, vast, there's so much. Was Richard Pryor a racist? Yeah, Joe Rogan opened up for him for, I forget what he said exactly, every night until he died, his last thing back in the 90s, and, decades ago. Just thoughts, opinions. Now, the proof is in the pudding. Let's go to the text.